Hello and welcome to Minimalism Monday. My name is Shoeless Joe, and today we are talking about one of my all-time favorite tips for deciding what to get rid of. One of the great benefits of minimalism, one of the reasons that some of us are drawn to minimalism, is the idea of having less stuff, which gives us more space. But how do we decide what to get rid of when we are looking at our bedroom or our living room or our desk? Or dare I say, our attic. And we're looking at all this stuff that we've accumulated over the years. How do we decide what stays and what goes? And there are a lot of different methods. And I'm not going to talk about all of the different methods, the KonMari and like all the questions that you kind of ask yourself. But I want to talk about an overall broader reversal of how we think about it. And I did not come up with this idea. You'll hear this from numerous different minimalists, but the idea is usually when we go into deciding what to keep, what to get rid of, what do we do with all of our stuff, we have this idea of what am I going to get rid of? What am I going to purge away? And we look at all of our things and we say, okay, what can go? But my tip, my trick here is to actually reverse that. And instead of asking ourselves, what am I going to get rid of? We ask ourselves, what am I going to keep? And it's a subtle difference, and it sounds almost like just saying the same thing. And it is kind of. It's, the other side of the coin. But I think it really helps to relieve a lot of the confusion and fatigue and just disorientation with having so much stuff and not knowing what to do about it and what to get rid of. Because we're not going to decide what to get rid of. We're going to decide what to keep. So let's think about how this looks practically. Okay, so let's say I come into, let's use a simple example of my desk, okay, my workspace. So I work from home, I've got my desk, and I've just got random stuff, papers and knickknacks and things that have accumulated. So when I go to clean my desk, my default or my kind of gut instinct is to just say, okay, what can I get rid of? And I pick and choose little things. Here's the thing about how I've at least observed that my brain works, and I think many people's do, is that we are creatures of habit, and we want to just kind of leave things the way that they are, right? Because it's safe, it's comfortable, it's easier. It's easier for me to just leave most of the stuff on my desk, which is why it becomes a mess. It has a bunch of stuff that doesn't need to be there. So when I think, oh, what should I get rid of? I think, oh, I could probably get rid of this. I could probably get rid of that. I'm not questioning everything nearly as much, or at least, actually, let me reverse that. I am questioning everything. And that's the problem, is that I have to take the energy to question every single item, which can be overwhelming. And then I start thinking, oh, do I need this? Do I not need it? So instead, what I would say is we got to ask, what are we going to keep? And the way that we do that, and here's the trick, we clear everything out of that space. So for my desk, instead of saying, oh, what can I get rid of, and kind of cleaning up that way, I'm going to clear everything off of my desk and say, okay, here's my empty desk. What belongs here? What lives here? What actually goes on my desk? And I will tell you, at least in my experience, that I am going to have much more success because I've already removed everything. And so now I've already gotten rid of that junk. I'm much less likely to pick up something that doesn't belong there and put it back and say, oh yeah, you live here, you little piece of wrapper or whatever little knickknack, you pen that ran out of ink that for some reason is just still sitting there, right? So once I move everything out and I say, okay, what actually lives here? The other benefit to this, I think, is that you get to actually picture and create how you want your space to look. So you can look at your desk and say, ooh, I like how clear it is. What do I want this to look like? So you can become, you're becoming an interior designer or decorator, or you get to decide what actually is going to live here and how are things going to be. It makes me think back to my school days many moons ago on the first day of school, and we would get to organize our desk, and I would have everything in little piles and like, ooh, this is going to go here. My pens go here. And inside my desk was just this magical little thing that turned into a huge disaster. And I used to clean it out, I remember, by just like picking things out and saying, this doesn't belong, which is better than nothing. But a better way, I think, would have been to clear it all out and start fresh and redesign it again. So we're not just picking things out, we're redesigning these spaces. and really deciding what goes there. And that to me is such a key because now I'm looking at this pile of stuff. Don't worry about what you're going to do with everything else at first, right? So I clear everything out. You don't have to immediately decide, am I going to throw this away? Am I going to donate this? What am I going to do with that? That's not what you're doing at first. First goal is to design the desk, right? So you move everything off and then you pick and choose these things. Now that's pretty easy to do, I think, with a desk. So that's why I give that example, because I think that's a pretty clear one. It gets harder when you go to other spaces. I want to redesign my living room. So I have to clear everything out of my living room. That's a little bit more of a tall order, right? That's a bit much. So of course, in a larger space, you might take it one piece at a time. Let me figure out these bookshelves, and I'm going to clear everything off of the bookshelves. That's the ticket. You don't just look around and say, oh, this could probably go. Oh, this could probably go. So I don't want to address here, when you clear off the bookshelf, how do you decide which books to keep? That's a whole different thing. Okay. That's not what I'm talking about here. I don't want you to worry about how to decide what to get rid of and that type of thing. I just want you to clear off that space and then picture, when you're looking at the bookshelves, what would I like to see here? What feels right to me of how this should look? Is it filled to the brim with books? Is it have some little statuettes and things and other, knickknacks? Is it very empty? Maybe I love the idea of empty bookshelves with like one book sitting on there. So you want to do that first. Redesign. Don't worry about what you're going to do with everything else. Okay. I teach an organizational skills class for my work. I'm an applications instructor, but I also teach some business skills class. And one of the classes I teach is organizational skills. And I had a woman, we were talking about when you organize, before you start organizing, you need to purge and get rid of things. That's going to be your biggest benefit to organizing, is getting rid of stuff first so that you have less to organize, right? So we were talking about how to purge things and get rid of things and how to decide what to get rid of. And I had a woman, I think she asked me during a break, she said, okay, I have an attic, right? An attic. Upstairs in my house, I've got this attic and it's filled with stuff. Because what happens? I feel like everyone, at least it's kind of like this middle class American thing where you have one of a few places that just becomes a graveyard for all your stuff, right? It's like just a stuff cemetery. It might be an attic, it might be a garage, it might be a basement, it might be a storage unit, or it might be your parents' house. I feel like one of those five things. Everyone's got like this like secret closet somewhere just filled with things that need to go. Maybe it's a spare bedroom, whatever. And so she said, I have this attic and it's filled with stuff. And I feel like a lot of us can relate to that. It's just got, stuff that was big and old furniture or things you didn't know what to do with and you just kind of shoved there. And she's like, I've tried to go through it and I just never get very far. I get rid of some things, but what's your advice? What do I need to do to tackle this? And I said, you're not going to like my answer, but my advice would be to take everything out of your attic. Because if you just are trying to make a dent, if you're just going into the attic and you're trying to attack it, you're fighting with the attic. You're battling with it. You're like, oh, let me get rid of this. And you see something over there under that couch stacked on top of the chair. And you're like, oh, maybe I should get rid of that. But it's hard to get in there and get to it. You're battling. So I don't want you to battle with these spaces. I don't want you to battle with your desk. I don't want you to battle with your attic or your bookshelves. We don't want to battle with it. We want to redesign it. We're starting anew. You're giving it a rebirth. So I'm like, you're not going to like my advice here, but you're going to have to take, what I would say is to take everything out of the attic. And then once you do that, and don't think about anything as you pull stuff out. Don't question any of the stuff you have. You're not thinking, ooh, should I keep this or not? Obvious garbage you can throw away, obviously. If you're grabbing trash, yeah, throw that away. But everything else, don't question it yet. Clear the space first. So we're not even talking about, what am I going to get rid of? What am I going to keep? You're not thinking about any of that. You clear it all first. You're looking at your empty attic. There's nothing in there. And now you decide what needs to be kept. What is actually going to live here? Not what am I going to get rid of? What am I keeping in here that makes sense to go here, that aligns with how I want to live my life? Okay. So we'll talk more about, once you get everything out of the attic, how do you decide what to keep, right? How do you make that call? And it's going to be a little bit different for everyone, but I just want you to think about that today, is clearing everything out first and redesigning that space. Because what she said, was happening was she would get started and just get overwhelmed or exhausted and lose steam, right? Life happens, you get busy, and you just can't keep up with it all. So maybe you spend an hour kind of trying to make a dent and you're just like, or maybe a few hours or a day or whatever. So I told her, once you clear out that attic, guess what other benefit you're going to have? A house full of stuff from your attic that you are going to be very motivated to get out of your living room or wherever you put it. So I want you to put it somewhere uncomfortable so that you're motivated to get rid of it, right? So if I clear out my attic and say, okay, nothing's going back in that attic unless I intentionally choose for it to go there, deciding what to keep in there, and now everything else is in my way. You know why we don't deal with attics? They're not in the way. They're not bothering us immediately. It's not an urgent problem, right? If I have an old couch, slunk sideways on my wall in the living room, that's more of an urgent thing. I'm probably like, okay, we need to get rid of this. We can't live like this. But that's why we don't deal with attics and garages and basements and storage units. They're not immediately inconveniencing us. But the whole thing about minimalism is that we are purging not just the stuff that's in our way, but all of the stuff that we have, because it does tie itself to us. That becomes a mental strain on us. Not even necessarily a strain, but it's in the back of our mind. If you think about imaginary tendrils that you have, strings that are just tied to all the stuff that you own. And when you cut those ties, you just live more freely. You live lighter. If nothing else, when you die, do you really want everyone else to have to go through your attic? No, that's rude. Okay, let's not defer that to other people. Let's deal with this now so we can live light and free. So that's my big tip, is to take everything away first, clear off your desk first, clear out the attic, clear off the bookshelves, whatever it is, clear it out first. Then look at it and picture and say, okay, how do I want this to look? How can I redesign this? And then we'll talk later about how do I choose what to put back? How do I choose what to keep? Let me know if anyone else has done this before or something similar, or this is like my favorite, like number one thing. This is like, for me, when I tell everyone who wants to get rid of stuff, this is my number one trick. There's more, but that's my like favorite starting point one. So let me know if you have a favorite tip or trick or tool that maybe you read in a blog, saw in a video, or you just were inspired to think of yourself. Let us know down in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to keep it simple, question everything, and stay radical. And I'll see you tomorrow for Questioning Tuesday. Goodbye forever, at least for now.